are, folks. Welcome to this House of Musicians radio show interview with the one and only, there's two and only, but we're here with Edmund Pilling.
Yes,
and as
hello.
we rotate your device, there's Edmund Pilling from Fludd, folks. Just for you.
And the crowd went mild.
And of course, we promised a special guest today that nobody knew about, and here he is, Mr. Greg Godovitz from Goddo. Can you believe it? Hey.
Thank you.
Now
thank the people over in that garage over there.
There you go. Look, we have people gathered around here. We have a nice little audience. Now, you guys want to start off with a song, so why don't you guys start off with a nice song, and then when you're done the song, we will sit and
chat.
Talk to you guys a little bit. How does that sound?
Walk before you run, telling you it's just begun, and you need some time, something you can't buy for a dime. So you look and you see what you're doing for me. Nothing. Homemade lady, sure got a lot to learn. Will you take all the money and you put it in a pie and you stick it in the oven? If you eat it, you're going to die. So you look and just see what you're doing to me. Nothing. Woo! Homemade lady, sure got a lot to learn. Harmonica? Homemade lady, sure got a lot to learn.
Here we go.
And you need a little time, something you can buy for a dime. So you look and you see what you're doing for me. Nothing, not a goddamn thing. Homemade lady, sure got a lot to learn. Homemade lady, sure got a lot to learn. Homemade lady, sure got a lot to learn.
Two hands on the wheel, please, madam.
What's those speed bumps?
All right, guys, that was excellent.
Thank you, though.
That song there came from,
Cock on.
yes,
That's a word you shouldn't use, apparently.
well,
On.
apparently not, but that's good. Why don't we talk about, fellas, how you guys met and got started real quick, briefly? Because I know you want to do another song.
No, we don't actually.
Oh, okay.
I met you
go on.
before you met me.
Did you?
I did. I started high school in 1964. I was 13 years old, and Ed's brother Brian was in my homeroom class, and he was actually sort of greasy back then. I already had a Beatle haircut, which is now, of course, flown the coop. But we met on Twerp Day, which is the day where anybody over the grade 9 could torment the young kids. We thought hell with that. So instead, we went running across the field, pretending we were like the Beatles in A Hard Day's Night. Mm-hmm. And let's get a band together. So we started rehearsing, and then the next thing, he shows up And I'll start this off, and then you can take over, Ed. We waited for about 2 hours in this little place, which is now a Wimpy's. It was a little greasy spoon restaurant. And we're excited because Ed, Brian's big brother's coming back from England. Well, he shows up, and he's got extremely long blonde hair for the time, very Brian Jones, Rolling Stones look, and a pea jacket. And the reason he was late was because the bus driver wouldn't pick him up. I mean, it was that bad if you had little Beatle haircuts back then. And Ed will tell you all about it now.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. And I often think when people talk about prejudice now and stuff like that, it's always been there. And it's not just color, it's where you're from and your accent and your clothes. You can, just having long hair, we were terrified, not terrified, but cautious of walking around and not getting beaten up by people,
I was terrified.
Yeah.
I always had him watching my back, though, so...
Well, you were on the radio show with me, and you had a story about Greg one time. I think you...
Oh, well, that was only because there was 200. I mean, I had to pick one.
Yeah, well, let's hear one.
Well, Greg was pretty, tough and mouthy for himself, which I admired, but sometimes they were bigger people, so I had to step in, and I became sort of the policeman of the band. And I was used to doing that in school, just looking after my brother. Because of the bully in the block, always wanting to beat somebody up.
And unfortunately, he was tall, so we were playing in like Timmins or someplace. We were in a motel waiting to do the arena, or whatever we were doing, and the big game was on, and all the local toughs were drinking beer and waiting for football. And I go out into the corridor, and I've got crushed velvet pants with mirrors down the side of the leg, and makeup on, and ballet slippers. What you'd expect to see in a small motel in Timmins. And these guys grabbed me and threw me up against the wall, and the one guy looked, he says, "What is it?"
What is it?
I didn't even know what I was, And then Ed comes out, and the guy goes, "Oh, check out Goldilocks here." And Ed just walks out and goes, bang! And the guy goes straight out, and the other guy goes, "No!" And Ed grabs me and says, "Stay in your room until we leave for the concert."
There you go, Ed.
My hero.
Yeah.
That's great. So you guys got together. I know you went to England, Ed, for a bit, and then you came back and met back up with Greg.
Well,
Talk about
Greg,
that for a bit.
What I was saying earlier, that's when I came back. I happened to be there when it was all actually just going on. It was starting, the big musical scene there. And it was stunning because everybody there played in a band, literally, and carrying around albums. It was a really exciting time. And we started this band then in Canada called the Pretty Ones, and there's a sign here.
Oh yeah, can somebody grab that for us back there, that sign?
I believe it or not, because I started on drums and singing, and but my brother and I was sang harmonies and whatnot. That was my drum skit. See that?
Yeah, talk about that. I think Greg gave you that. You found it, or
His father found it for us
In the garage.
because we always used to rehearse at Greg's house as this band.
that's crazy.
And this was the time when
Still around.
we apparently thought we were pretty ones because the Ugly Ducklings were around. So we wanted to be, well, they were like a Stones band and we were more
Pretty Things?
Beatley band. Yeah, Pretty Thing. So it was quite an experience. And then Brian and I left after the Pretty Ones played for a while with Greg, and we went our separate ways until we had all the musical experience that we had in England with Cat Stevens and whatnot, and Greg was constantly playing here. And then we got back together again, and that started Fludd.
Amazing.
I love the way he sort of just fluffs over the fact that they backed up Cat Stevens.
Yeah. You backed up.
I mean, that is an incredible achievement.
Touch on that for a
Well,
bit.
what
Ed.
amazed me about that more than anything is that we had become quite a big band, obviously, in Birmingham, which was no easy stroke, because that's a big town, like second to London. And as I say, there was tons of bands, so we became really popular to the point where Cat Stevens' brother heard about us and for some reason sent him up to Birmingham from London to pick us up to come and do this tour he wanted to do in Europe. Out of all those bands, yeah,
Amazing.
it was quite astonishing, really. That's why when my brother and I talked to his brother in the pub out on our gig, we're like, oh yeah, here we go, I'm the Queen of England, you know. Until we went outside and there's this great big long stretched limo. I thought, well, Christ, must be real.
Yeah.
And he came back to our house where Brian and I were staying with my Aunt Hilda, where we were born. had a cup of tea and all that, chatting, and he said, and we're all excited, the band's with us all together. He said, but the thing is, you got to leave tonight. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We've got a year's worth of gigs booked because we're doing that well. So we've got to crap out on all our responsibilities,
Stop
leave
everything.
the house and go to London. But the music business kind of liked it. When somebody like Cat Stevens, especially then, he was huge,
Yep.
asked you to come and play with him, you better go.
You don't want to turn the opportunity down.
And say, no, I'm sorry, I'm booked. So we just went.
You know
And it
what?
was quite an experience.
You mentioned Aunt Hilda. The first time I went to Birmingham with Brian and Ed, we also had another guy with us whose name, hang on, it's my roadie.
Sexy.
Thank you very much, yes. Oh, yes, straight vodka.
I just want to know why Greg gets one and not Ed.
Well, because
I sleep
I'm
with
nice to his wife.
They sleep with you, don't get tea.
There was another guy that came with us whose name was Ray Daniels. Now, he was a fledgling booking guy. We've never figured out why Ray was with us. I had to sleep with him in a single bed in Aunt Hilda's upstairs in the attic,
Yeah.
right? He went on to make, about $100 million managing Rush.
Wow.
And I see him at the baseball games, and I've
And
never
he slept with him.
And he slept with me. And I didn't get anything.
Disgraceful.
It was horrible.
Well, there you go.
Interesting. Just on a quick note, because
Yep.
she's very special. Aunt Hilda was a real rock and roll aunt, and she looked after our clothing sometimes, me and my brother. And everybody in the band started to learn about Aunt Hilda, and they all wanted to meet her, so they did. And she was the inspiration behind the song Cousin Mary.
Which we'll do now.
Yeah,
nice
absolutely.
segue, Ed.
All right, folks.
I didn't even have a script.
We got Ed Pilling and Greg Godovitz right here on This House of Musicians, and they're going to play another song for you.
Except I want to do it in tune for a change, so...
That'll be different.
Well, it's totally different for me. I played in a band that was out of tune for 45 years. That's why God invented guys to tune your guitars. You ready, Edmundo?
Yeah.
1, 2. Everybody's going to remember this old chestnut. And we don't have a tip jar, but if you want to throw pennies or something at us, we don't mind. Any sort of loose change, folding money.
Gold teeth.
Okay, 1, 2, 1.
Cousin Mary was a lady who could really hold her own. She went fighting for her country. She went fighting for a home. Then there's the time she lost her husband. She was fighting for the right. She'll be leaving in the morning. Won't you please say goodnight? All the money in the world couldn't tie old Mary down. You can believe her when she tells you that she's had her turn around. There could be knights and kings and long horses ready just to fight. She'll be leaving in the morning. Won't you please say goodnight? She'll be leaving in the morning. Won't you please say goodnight? Oh, lovely lady. Oh, lovely lady. She's always so fair. She'll be leaving in the morning. Won't you please take good care? Oh, lovely lady.
Thank you.
You know, that high part was a lot easier to do 45 years ago.
Yes. I know. I was going to reach over and squeeze you somewhere.
Yes, thank you.
Let's talk about Cousin Mary real quick. When that thing hit, what did you guys think? Like, where were you at the time, and what did you have to do? Did you have to go tour with it, or were you already touring with
no,
it?
No, actually, we didn't. It was actually probably the last thing on our mind about Cousin Mary, because we had some rocking things like Come On, Come On, which did pretty well. Now Made Lady, and there was some other. It was a pretty good album, I thought. But I guess the middle of the road, and it was weird because it was a little odd because it didn't actually represent what Fludd was.
Not at all.
That was the tough part, because you get labeled at that point like we're almost like a country band, and that was far from the truth.
Right.
Well, your
Fludd was
harmonica set it apart, and then of course the guy that owned the studio, Andy Herman,
played banjo.
He played banjo on it.
So we really went there, you know.
Wow.
We started
to make
talking
the texture of the
with
song.
southern accents.
But I guess you can't, you don't argue with radio stations that want to play your music. So they did that. They loved that song. They played it to death, and which we're very grateful for. But it was always a little bit of a tough place for Fludd, because even Turn 21 or Brother and Me became big hits, and they weren't, except the only one that actually sort of did that was Get Up, Get Out and Move On.
Oh, totally.
That expressed much more of what Fludd live was.
Right.
But nobody's complaining because they played them, so.
Yeah, sure.
Well, lovely. You just want to get airplay.
It got a lot of plays for sure. And so you guys were touring at that time?
Yeah, because well, we were doing it was just prior to going to England, wasn't it?
But we did the East Coast a lot.
We did the East Coast a lot. I
And
love
then we
the
went
East Coast.
out to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Played out there. This glam rock was happening.
Right.
So we all had, fabulous eye makeup on, and, we had our toenails painted.
Well, you see, one of the things I learned from when I came back from England, of course, I love the way the British bands approach music on every level, especially performance, because when they got on stage, they were on stage for a reason. And I noticed when I got back to Canada, in North America in general, it was basically blue jeans and a t-shirt. Well, that just didn't happen in England. You had every type of clothing and attitude. It was pretty exciting. It was more like being in Hollywood. And I always thought that when you're on stage, it's a performance. So, yeah, and I don't think people want to come and look at themselves on stage. They want to come there and see something else going on, That's why they liked Hollywood,
Sure. Do you remember that? I came back from England that time. I went on my own, and I came back with this incredible clobber. I mean, just velvet suits and satin suits. And you guys picked me up, and we played at Alliston High School that night. And I had it all on display. Wore what I wore, came off. All of it was stolen. Remember that? I don't know. I mean, surely somebody afterwards would have said, well, that guy that, lives on the farm walking around in that silk suit doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I never got any of it back.
No. Well, they were just nasty.
I noticed all the thongs I was wearing in those days, nobody stole those.
No.
I remember that.
So now did you have any idea of Goddo while this was going on? Because Goddo came later, right, Greg?
Well, yeah, I left the band. I left Fludd in 74, 75. First of all, Brian and Ed justifiably so had the monopoly on writing the songs.
Sure.
I mean, I was starting to write songs. I wrote Cock On. I wrote Chantel. A bunch of songs I wrote back in those days. But the writing was on the wall for me because I wanted to become a songwriter. First and foremost, they had their own houses. They had a limousine. I was living with my mother.
Awesome.
And I mean, still to this day, I'd love to. He's never told me, but one of these days I'll find out how much Cousin Mary makes a year. Because everybody here has heard that song, right? Cousin Mary? Like, you don't like it anymore, right?
No,
You love it. Okay, I'm kidding. Anyway, so I wanted to become a songwriter. So I broke away from the band and ended up doing the same thing, writing all the songs and keeping all the money.
Awesome. Let's get back and talk about Fludd. You guys. So how long did you guys tour together?
Well, a few years, because he did the first album and the second album.
Beautiful.
And a bit of the third one.
Yeah. So it was quite a while.
Okay.
And I mean, Greg's exactly right. I mean, I'm not comparing a Spanish stretch, but I guess it was a little similar to what Harrison was with Lennon McCartney. It's hard unless there's a setup, and we knew Greg wanted to write more music. But, you know, there's only sometimes so much rooms. I don't know. It's just one of those things.
Brian told my mother that once. My mom was talking to Brian, and she said, you know, Gregory's writing some pretty good songs.
Yeah.
And he said, with all due respect, Mrs. Godovitz, Fludd is our band. And that's when I knew the writing was on the wall, and I went, well, hell with them. I'm leaving.
Sure. Yeah,
You know,
well,
I'll be the despot.
but look how long you guys have been friends, and you're sitting here right now. How incredible is that?
Ed is my oldest friend in general, not just the music business. I mean, we've been friends since 1964.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You know,
Amazing.
I've had about 15 wives in that time.
Yeah, they've come and gone, but Ed's still there
Ed
for
is
you.
still there.
Well, the funny thing too, and it's true because and Gregory's always been a gentleman and brought me into his Goddo shows on many occasions, and because we had a pretty big bond in those days, you don't forget that stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
But you do respect other. I'm very proud of what he did with Goddo because that was very successful.
Yeah, both bands, amazing. Tell me, all the fans would love to hear a crazy story, on the road story, on the stage story. I know you guys got lots of them. Tell us a crazy story. Go nuts. It doesn't matter what it is. I know. I got to give you a minute. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
The neighbors might not appreciate it.
Well, you might have to turn the mics off.
Okay, I'll tell you one from. This is when I was with Ed and Fludd. We were staying at a hotel on Robson Street, the Tropicana on Robson Street in Vancouver. And I look over the balcony and I see sitting on the curb down below is a guy wearing full Indian chief drag. Okay, like the feathered hat, everything, headdress, everything. So I go downstairs. Now this is before we had cell phones and stuff. And I sit down beside him, and it's Chief Dan George. Wow. That's who it was.
That's cool.
Now, a little big man had just come out, and he's sitting on the curb, out of his brains going, I killed you, white man. I killed you, white man. That's all he kept saying over and over. And I go, this is interesting.
Oh, yeah, sure it is.
I mean, anybody could talk about groupies, you know, but, you know, I met Chief Dan George. Okay?
Yeah, there you go.
And then the cops came and dragged him off.
Amazing. Ed, do you have one?
Talk about the manor.
Well, yeah, there was an interesting. This is a really
That's
interesting
manager.
story because when we were at the Manor, which was Richard Branson's place to record, we decided to go over there. They just sort of opened up this idea of going to a place to record, and he was a real step ahead of his time, to say the least. When we caught wind of this, we said we were Daffodil Records at the time, so God, we got to go. That'd be great, especially being from England. It'd be wonderful. And what you did, the principle was, which was brilliant, because you stayed there. You didn't go to a studio every day where you'd have to set up the 4 hours drum tests and all the rest of it. You just left it, went to bed, got up whenever you want, and went back in. Well, it was clever. It saved you a lot of time, money, and everything else, and the atmosphere was always yours. Anyway, one night, I'm sitting there in the front of the sort of mansion. This is a Cromwellian manor. This is how far back it goes. It was Cromwell's joint.
It was
So-
Cromwell's.
I'm sitting in front of the fireplace with Bootleg, who was the dog, an Irish wolfhound, perfect name for a dog in a record company. And Greg and John Anderson, who was the drummer at the time, came running out of the kitchen with dozens of eggs
Comfy, Ed, we said.
and just pelted me with them. Okay? Because what I'd done a couple of nights before, I'd broken my big toe, so I was in a cast.
You tell him how you broke your big toe, though.
Well, I was dancing down the tables at dinner.
As you do.
And I leaped off the end and broke my toe. So I'm in a cast, so they figured, Christ, he can't run after us. And they belted me with all these eggs. I was just covered in dripping eggs.
And then all hell broke loose. It ended up with this absolute orgy of destruction.
Eggs.
But also buckets of water over
Oh,
that
yeah.
balustrade.
It
People would
got
walk
silly.
under, and we'd have a garbage can full of freezing cold water, or people were like, you know, getting to know each other in the rooms, the maids and all, and we'd kick open the door and throw ice water all over them. And the next morning, Richard Branson shows up, and I walk outside, and he goes, and I went, oh shit. And he goes, I'd like a word with you. And I'm looking at his shoes going, boy, he's got really nice shoes. And he goes, I understand you had a bit of fun last night. And I'm going, he goes, well, the next time
He
you do it,
wasn't happy.
at least call me so I can join in. Because they were not,
amazing.
we destroyed the place.
Well, one of the most-
Tapestries covered in eggs.
But
Legendary.
the other fascinating part of that story at the Manor, which was really incredible, there there was a young fella sitting in a seat across from me in front of the fireplace one night after we'd done a session. And I'm just talking to him, very quiet, hardly talk. Anyway, I find out later on, because the engineers had come to us and said, would you mind if Michael, this guy in this chair, uses your gear when you're not playing, because Richard is trying to get him to do an album and that. And I said, okay, no problem. And we get back to Canada not too long after, and it was Mike Oldfield doing Tubular Bells.
Yeah,
It
and
was amazing.
Crazy.
he for some reason really hated me because I was
He was so quiet, Greg.
I was like Keith Root, and he's like, like a church mouse. So one day I come in and I said, hey, Mike, you're writing there? Yeah. And he's going, "Ugh," and he's working on the score for Tubular Bells. I said, well, it's a bit chilly in here. I'll get the old fire going. So I load up the wood. I said, I just need something to light. And I reached over behind me and I grabbed a piece of the original score of Tubular Bells and lit it on fire and stuck it in the fireplace. And he goes, ah!
Wow.
And I said, oh, was that your music? And then I walked out of the room, After that, he avoided me like the plague.
That's incredible. Well, you guys want to do another tune?
Sure. No.
Right on. Well, I'm here with Ed
Do one
Pilling,
yours.
Greg Godovitz,
Right.
the great band Fludd, and the great band Goddo. Stoked to be
Did
sitting
you
here
just call me Godovitz?
Godovitz.
Thank you.
Sorry. Stoked to be sitting here with you. I don't want to get beat up either, Greg.
Oh, it's okay. Ed could take you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he could. Sitting here
Actually,
with
man, can I borrow your dog so I can sick him on this guy over here, please? Okay, let's do this one.
Hey, you good looking in a very fine robe. You're the sweet thing that I'd like to know. Maybe we could make eyes after the show. You can have it fast, you can have it slow. I guess you figured out what's on my mind. After the gig, we can have a real fine time. I said, you show me yours, I show you mine. Bring a willing girlfriend, she can be next in line. I'm just a pretty bad boy. I'm just a pretty bad boy. Pretty bad boys need pretty bad, pretty girls too. We can go to my place if you're so inclined. Got rugs with showers, lubricants, and things I bind. Ain't no mic man down that can reach your mind. Just your eyes are screaming anytime. I'm just a pretty bad boy. I'm just a pretty bad boy. Pretty bad boys need pretty bad, pretty girls too. I'm just a pretty bad boy. I'm just a pretty bad boy. Pretty bad boys need pretty bad, pretty girls too. Oh my, I'm just a pretty bad boy. I'm just pretty bad.
I got a story to tell you about this song. Anybody remember this one from the radio back years ago? We're in the studio and we get to the middle bit and we could not find anything that fit for a guitar solo. But one of the roadies' little kids, Russell, he was about 4 years old at the time. I said, I got an idea. So we stuck him on a bucket. I said, Russell, every time I point to you, say I'm just a pretty bad boy. Biggest selling record we ever had. I didn't pay him a penny. Anyway, that's the end of that. Okay, that's it. Pretty bad boy.
awesome.
Okay.
There you go, guys.
Thank you. Nicely
Thank you
played,
very
Eddie. I
much.
sort of threw that one at you, but
Oh, that's all right.
nicely done.
I know, I would like to say, and I know Greg will agree completely, but a big, incredible part of the story of Fludd Band was my brother Brian. And to me, one of the best guitar players, certainly would have been today at his time. Great writer and singer. And he spent 5 years having treatment for leukemia through the Princess Margaret Hospital, to the point where I don't know whether people know much about, therapy and all that, chemo and all that, but it knocks the hell out of you. So to be doing a 2-hour show every night and touring, It was absolutely unbelievable that he did that. We got a motorhome for that very reason. So we could take him from the hospital or from wherever, lie him down, and literally used to, put him up because he wanted to, and play. And he pulled it off, man.
He still had a tremendous sense of humor about it too. Even when he knew he was dying.
Never complained.
He had to get his hair all fell out because of the chemo, and he had a custom-made
Human wig, yeah.
that looked like the way John Lennon had it long. And I've got a fabulous picture of him because he did this. He turned around backwards and put the wig on, so there was just this blank head there, and he didn't mind it being done.
We took him in a restaurant like that once.
Yeah, he didn't eat very much. I remember that. He had no
freaked
mouth.
the waitress out there. But he was a pretty marvelous individual, and that's, to say the least, apart from the fact that he was my brother, but
yeah,
that took a lot of courage and hard work.
Gone way too soon. I was sometimes, whenever I think about Brian, I think what he would have developed into, as a songwriter, because him and Ed were already writing classics,
Right.
It would have been, and it was great for me because once I started writing too, I loved playing him my new stuff, because I could see there was that little sort of competition thing starting, He was right when
and we liked the same kind of music.
Yeah,
sure.
we grew up in the Beatles and all that stuff. It's funny because their younger brother Steve, he said to me once, he says, "So what's it like being the George Harrison
there you go.
of Fludd?" And I said, "I don't know. What does that make you, Andy Gibb?" And then he hit
Honey,
me.
can you get my guitar?
And how many songs did you guys write together?
My brother and I?
Christ, hundreds.
Geez, I never counted them up, but I mean, we did, I suppose, 4 albums and other things, and I did write an album with my young brother Steve when we did it a few years back called Floodlights, and we did that one. Thanks, son. So, yeah, I don't really know.
Okay, a lot of songs. That's good.
I only ever wrote one song with Brian, and I just figured it out. It went, I can't understand it.
Oh yeah, I love that.
She believes all his lies. Fortune in man's eyes. Oh, it's a hard road. Put the key in your door. It didn't turn like it did before. You took me right in for everything that I had. Never wanted to see you sad.
okay, and it goes like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great song.
Fortune in Men's Eye, yeah.
You guys should go in and record that one.
Yeah, well, when Brian hadn't passed on, but Goddo recorded it.
Really?
As a
Yeah, Goddo
single.
did.
To make a couple of bucks for his kids and stuff,
Yeah, that didn't get on an album?
No, we did. We actually covered "Homemade Lady" that Brian and Ed did, the one we did earlier, and then we recorded this, and it was we had a Mellotron, and it was very Beatley, But that's the only song that Brian and I ever wrote together, and it's a darn good one.
It sure is.
I wrote most of it, by the way. I felt sorry for him, So.
Right, we're gonna do one more.
Folks, I'm sitting here with Ed Pilling and Greg Godovitz. See, I said it right this
It's
time.
about
I'm sorry,
bloody
Greg.
time, I'll tell you that.
The band Fludd and Goddo as well. These guys were together in Fludd. Everybody knows that. Right here, on this House of Musicians radio show, and we're going to listen to
It's called Ticket to Nowhere.
Greg and Ed doing a song called "Ticket to Nowhere."
This was in a movie.
Yes, it is.
What
It was
movie?
in the Waterfield Girl.
New Waterford Girls.
New Waterford Girl.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was in a
Amazing.
movie, and we went to
That's
see
true,
it. It was
wasn't it?
great, wasn't it? You forgot that? I remember everything.
It seems that I'm waiting ever for you. A ticket
nice, guys.
There you go. Thank you.
Very nice, Edmund.
That's when you say snowball. Okay.
How did that song come about?
Got dumped by a girl.
Well, it's usually some sort of, there's a lot of connection to romantic people. We did a lot of songs that weren't, like Birmingham, we wrote about Birmingham.
Sure.
Because I like that too. Getting up, get out and move on is like, get your ass in gear and get doing. So it's not always love songs. I mean, love songs, when you start writing, that's usually where you start, because that's usually your biggest problem. And everybody writes love songs, which is lovely. And to get a special one is still special. But it's, we like to do when we're writing completely other fields, like Brother and Me, going on a holiday, and having different rhythm sections. We did a song called Boarding School, and it was actually about, Anne knows this fortunately, I snuck into a dorm with this nurse. I wasn't supposed to go in there, and she stuck me in through the window, bathroom window, you know. And I got out of there by the skin of my teeth, running by nuns and all the rest of it. And
the perks of a rock star.
Well, I didn't. So that stuck in my mind. So I just compared it to being in boarding school, and that was a completely like jazz feel. So
Yeah, it was good.
it was fun to do different fields in music. I love Latin and not just straight rock all the time. That's what writing is. I find it so wonderful.
Absolutely. When was the last time you guys played together?
Now,
No, tomorrow this will be the last time.
yeah. I don't know, it was last year at the Phoenix
Yeah,
when
well,
I came
I
down.
mean, everything's changed
Oh,
right,
it has.
since March.
Oh, you know what? It was then, because Greg was doing one of his last gigs, and he brought the guy that actually played the banjo on
Yeah.
Cousin Mary.
That's right.
I'd never seen him since the day we did it, and there he was on stage with me.
was
And we
great.
both were like goosebump time, like this is unbelievable. So that's what it was at the Phoenix.
Yeah, really, it was great to have the original guy
There
playing
he
that
was.
part, you know.
It's like,
Amazing.
I didn't even know where he'd gone in life.
Did he play it flawlessly?
Oh, totally.
That's
Oh yeah,
amazing.
of course. It was like I'm
The
looking at
banjo.
him thinking, Chris, I never thought I'd be on stage with you playing this song.
It was great.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to do another one?
No.
We can keep talking. That's fine. I'm loving it.
I'll do it. I've got.
You do one.
I have a love song I can do just to
There
make
you
it
go.
tune up again. I wrote a whole album when I was in Calgary about one person. I called it "Amuse Me," the album, because well, that's what she was. But the song started out. At first I wrote the table set, the houses. No, I got a table set, the houses. I can't remember, but it was like a Paul McCartney song. I figured that'll work, And then I started writing other songs until as the relationship got worse and worse, the songs got worse and worse. So I wrote one called "I Ain't Your Jesus." Wasn't very nice. "Letting You Go" gets easier each day. Not very nice. But this was the first ballad I wrote.
Sorry, Greg. This is off your solo album.
This is off my solo album, "Amuse Me." And Ed is going to play conga drums on it. Aren't you, Ed?
Am I? Okay.
Yes.
Voluntold.
Such a bully.
When I'm searching for love in all the wrong places, yes, I'm searching for love with all the wrong faces. I made up my mind. I thought this thing through. I'm searching for love, searching for love. I'm starting with you. Sometimes I just can't figure out what to do with you. You frustrate me daily, and I know I frustrate you. How can we fix things when communication ends? We have to talk it out. We have to find the truth on which it so depends. So I'm searching for love in all the I'm searching for love in all the wrong places. I'm searching for love with all the wrong faces.
There's that C chord again.
Made up my mind, and I thought this thing through. I'm searching for love, starting with you. Yeah, I'm searching for love, starting with you. I'm searching for love, and I'm starting with you.
Amazing, guys.
Not a dry depends in the house.
Have you guys ever considered, folks, you're here watching this House of Musicians radio show, live interview with Ed Pilling and Greg Godovitz. Have you guys actually really considered sitting down and writing an album and doing an album together?
No.
Okay. Can that happen?
Well, you might have noticed something, and I usually don't cop out of myself, but every time I went to play a C chord in that, I've got this hideous thing for a guitar player called Dupuytren's contracture, which means that my fingers no longer do what I want them to do. Mm-hmm. So when I go to play a C chord, like it sounds like I can't make the chord anymore.
Yep.
So
understandable.
Personally, I think that my playing days are almost finished. But I mean, we could. Ed could play guitar,
listen,
and I'll sing with him.
Your voice hasn't changed. You can still sing.
Well, I always said that to him. He's lucky that a lot of people he can sing. I mean, it's a terrible thing that's happening. Our old friend, but we know very well, Godovitz, who's one of the greatest guitar players around, and he like practices stays 6 hours a day. But last year he lost the use of his hand for 2 months. I thought poor beggar was gonna go mental. But we did point out to him, perhaps you don't need to practice 8 hours a day anymore, to play guitar.
But it's got nothing to do with that.
No, I know it's
mine's hereditary. My dad had it. My brother
was just
had
pulling
it.
his leg.
Yeah.
And of course, all those on the road activities, which he's got to stop doing that.
Sure.
But other than that, he's a lot better, and he's playing again. So he's just taking it easy. But Greg is. I feel for anybody. I remember the famous Dudley Moore had the same thing. He got sick and he couldn't play the piano because he was a jazz pianist. It just ruined his life. He just didn't want to be
heartbreaking.
around.
It's horrible because
it's what you do.
I've been doing this for 56 years.
Yep.
I finally figured out all the chords, and now I can't play them.
Exactly.
I mean, hello up there. If you're listening,
It's just like being
if you're listening, get rid of Donald Trump and then deal with my hand.
It's just like being a young man when you're in your best stage of your life, having sex.
There you go.
And all of a sudden, menopause comes along, screws your entire life up.
And
I think I'll take it away then.
He really is annoying,
I resemble that remark.
Here, use this one.
Ed's boss is trying to give him a guitar.
Hey, no, let him use this one. It sounds better.
She bought me that
No,
one.
it's got a better. It's got a better amp.
That one.
I know, but it's got a better amp.
Now, Greg, you got to get on the bongos.
Oh no, you don't want that. I'm just going to sit here and
am I
admire
doing?
from afar.
Am I doing something? All right, wait a minute.
Try something new.
If you're just tuning in, folks, I'm sitting here with Ed Pilling and Greg Godovitz.
You asked me how to get there, or if I had the time to lead you through this big well, to find a lifeline. Give me everything behind you. There's no future in the past. I'm a lady on the goal line. Can't afford to pass. Make me up, make me down. Make me any way you want me. Make me stay around. Show me the way to go home. Tired. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I wanna go home. love you only. This I can confess. I'm living in the memory of the same dress where we all can play the music and we try to sing along, but we got to keep on dancing, straight and strong. Make me up, bring me down, make me any way you want me. Make me stay around. Show me the way to go home. I'm tired. And I wanna go home.
New song, Ed? How many songs have you written lately? You have a lot?
About a dozen I got hanging about. I'm just trying to get a new album together.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Can I play tambourine on it?
Yeah. You certainly can, Gregory.
It's my new instrument.
You can play your penny whistle.
I got one of those.
I know, it's wearing out quick.
So you guys have another crazy story for us?
Are the kids in bed?
You have to be a good boy, Greg.
Well, I remember a kind of a crazy story. It was pretty nuts. We were coming back from Windsor, I think it was, and we had our limo at the time. Anyway, the cop pulled us over, and it was my brother's birthday, and he happened to drink a bottle of Southern Comfort, and so he was sitting on the passenger side. And the cop just pulled us over. It was a snowy winter night, and he asked me. This sort of nice guy this side says, "What's wrong with him?" I said, "He's pissed. It was his birthday." That's why. And the other cop goes, "I want him out of the car." And I'm thinking, "No, don't do that." So he goes around the other side and he opens the door and Brian fell out in the snow. So Brian's now ready to get up and have a fight with it. I said, "Brian, it's a cop. It's a cop. Get that." So the police then took him in the car, which was insane, to the police station. So we had to follow them there. And I'm sitting in the car and waiting. They told us to stay there, and our manager and everybody, "You're going to just stay there." And they drag him up this big long staircase to the police station. It was at the top. And we were there like half an hour. I'm thinking, we're going to go up there. What are they doing with him? He hasn't done anything. He's sitting there. He's unconscious. So finally I went. Anyway, the manager didn't really want to. I said, "Well, I'm going to have a look, see what's going on here." So I'm coming up the stairs. This big bruiser of a cop at the top of the stairs. He's got Brian kind of against the wall still. And I just said to him, I said, "Listen, if you don't let go of him, I'm going to throw you down that staircase." The cop looks at me like I was insane. I said, "Look, just let him go, okay?" And he did. But we had to go through all this. And I had to threaten the cop. And I thought, I don't care at this point. My brother wasn't feeling well. And there was no reason for it in the first place. And he actually let him go and let me walk out with him.
We were on tour. We had I used to call them Fludd's Follies because we really didn't deserve a stretch limousine, but we had one. We had a bus. We had Fludd's Follies. So we're going up north starting the tour Kapuskasing. I think we played a high school. We made a wrong turn into South River. And after that, they saw a bunch of long-haired guys in a Fleetwood.
Oh, that, yeah.
And the next thing, we didn't know, but there was a police helicopter following us to Kapuskasing. So when we arrive in Kapuskasing, all of a sudden we're surrounded by OPP, and they take us to the precinct. Now the word gets out that the band that they're all coming to see is at the police station. We got 300 kids outside, down with the cops and all that kind of stuff and screaming. And they put us in a room. And they said, we've got a dog coming up from North Bay. It'll find the drugs. So at one point, I think it could have been Ed and I. There was one cop guarding the whole band, and I said, "Got to use the washroom." Ed said, "I do too." So we went in. The cop says, "You guys stay here." Well, they stayed in there, and our manager's like opens up the filing cabinet, and he's looking through, then takes out this huge lump of hash and puts it in the filing cabinet and shuts the door. And the dog arrived. They let us do the gig. We never saw the hash again, but we didn't get arrested either. So you remember that?
Great story. Great story.
I mean, we had a million. And of course, that story's in my first book. I still say he should write a book, but I have to tell him the truth on all the stories.
Remember the state troopers in the U.S.?
Anyway,
Go ahead, Greg. Yeah.
I'm just in the process of finishing my second book.
Sure.
Right now, it's called Up Close and Uncomfortable.
Yep.
And it's going to be out. There's still a lot of Fludd stories in it and stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff involved as well. So second book, Travels with My Amp, did really well. Ed was the hero of my first book.
Awesome.
Not so much in the second one, but he's in there, and it'll be out in the next couple of months.
Good.
Right.
We're looking forward to that.
It
It's
just
funny,
reminded me
apparently.
of a very kind of an interesting, especially in light of what's going on now in the United States, because to me it's just the craziest places on the planet at the moment. And this whole racial thing and the way they react, they were like that back in the 70s. They've been like that for a long time. And we went down where we got the first record contract with Warner Brothers to do Turn 21 and all that
Cool.
stuff. We didn't get our money sent to us by the man, our contract. And it was 25 grand at that time. That's a lot of money back then. And we'd never had any money in our lives, so we wanted it, right? Anyway, they weren't sending it. So we got our manager, who happened to have a brand new nice Firebird. We didn't, but he did. And we said, we're taking that car. I'm going to go down and get our money. He said, you going to drive there? He said, yes. Let's get in the car and go and get it. So we drove. We were going to drive to L.A. So we're in the desert, at about 140 degrees in the desert. We got the windows open. And, of course, we're all in our underwear and long hair. And the state troopers pulled us up. Well, this wasn't going to go well. I knew that. He said, get out of the car. Okay, here we are in our drawers and long hair, right? And so he said, open that trunk. And so I got the key to open the trunk, and he said, just leave it there. And we opened the trunk. He looked through it, and I saw him take the keys and just chuck them in the trunk and shut the lid.
Oh.
And I said, being polite, excuse me, officer, I think you dropped my keys in the trunk. No, I didn't. I knew he did. And I said then, my next polite thing was, could you give one of us a lift into the nearest, we're in the middle of hell nowhere in a desert, to the nearest dealership so I can get a new key? No, we can't take civilians in our car. And buggered off. I could have killed him, But anyway, I was lucky enough to get in the back seat and pull the back seat out and get my arm through there and found the keys.
Wow.
But I'll tell you, we stopped in a couple of spots through Nevada to get a coffee or something, and they were all wearing Stetson and guns. They could have easily wanted to kill us. We ran in, grabbed the coffee, and ran like hell to get out of there. So it's not much different now.
What's the moral of this story? You want to know what it is?
Don't go to the United States.
No, next time wear women's underpants.
Oh, then they would have shagged me. Great.
Well, you were kind of cute, so.
So your favorite song to play on stage, Ed?
I think, for listening purposes, when we played, was a song called "We All Sing Together," because my brother used to just fly on so many levels with his guitar playing. We had a live version of that, which is one of my favorites. It's on tape.
I just found the tape in there.
Yeah.
It says lead on it, lead vocal on it.
Yeah, we opened up for the Electric Light Orchestra at the Gardens, and that night he just thought, I'm in Maple Leaf Gardens, I'm going to play.
I'm going for it.
And he was amazing. So it's always stuck in my mind.
Yeah,
Great.
He was becoming an incredible guitar player. Yeah. He really was, because he was dedicated to becoming, I was
melodic.
I was in it for all the right reasons: sex, drugs, and sex. That's all I wanted out of it. But Brian was like, he would study. He was becoming a fluid. He was like Alvin Lee. Like he could play too many notes. But you could get him.
Well, his favorite guitar player, and mine was Jeff Beck, who is like a different type of interesting guitar, to say the least. A guy like Clapton is a wonderful player, but I've kind of heard it all before. Jeff Beck, you haven't.
Oh yeah, he's the best.
He goes somewhere else, and that's my brother was kind of like that.
Awesome. And your favorite song to play on stage, Greg?
Sweet Thing. I mean, it always got the biggest round of applause. I always felt, sort of stupid at, 69 years old singing a song about a 16-year-old.
That's why they arrested you.
Many times.
It's funny though, because times have certainly changed since then. There's lots of rock songs back in the day about 16, 17-year-old girls. So
can't do that now.
it's no, you can't.
I
It's
just
just
lost my mind.
it's crazy.
Look at one.
You guys,
I will show you one thing before I run out of here. We'll
Yep.
Ed continue, but this was a song we used to do back in the 60s. It was a Stone song, and it would go. Hang on. Oh, this camera's here. Sitting, sinking, thinking, drinking, wondering what to do when I'm through tonight. Smoking, moping, baby, just hoping some little girl will pass on by. Don't wanna be alone, but I left my girl at home. Well, I remember what she said. She was common, flirty, she looks about 30. So I used to sit there and go, 30? What the hell is Mick Jagger singing about? 30? Yeah, what are you kidding me? At my age now, I would kill for a 30-year-old. Anyway, that's me done.
Thanks very much.
guys, thank you so much. It's been an honor to sit with you, Ed
thanks for
Pilling and Greg Godovitz.
My neighbors popping by and saying hello.
Absolute honor.
That's
And
Mr. Dan Smith, by the way, from Brutus.
oh, there you go. Hello there, sir. How are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Brother Rick.
Awesome. Hi, Rick. Love the shirt. There you
He
go.
doesn't have a Brutus t-shirt.
There you go.
I never got one.
Little conga drum solo there. Wipe out on the
That's my
congas.
lady, Ann.
Yep, that's Ann over there. That's the big boss, the big chief.
Cinematographer, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, like for real.
Guys, hey, thank you so much. It's an honor to sit with Ed Pilling here and Greg Godovitz. And you know what? We're going to have you both on the show again one day soon here, and we're going to follow your progress and whatever you guys are doing, your progress and whatever you're doing. Thank you.
Do we get paid next time?
Thank you for
Thank you, Barry. Thanks, Dave.
thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, guys.